Thank you very much. So, usual thing, if you have a question, please raise your hand. If you do get called on, please do provide your name and company. I've got a few questions to get us started, but the microphone's in the audience, so go ahead and put your hand up and we'll get a mic to you. I wanted to start, actually, Michael, with you. I had a big question at the very beginning, and it's probably a quick and simple answer. But I was curious just to confirm that you actually have no approval for contributors. Is there not a staging where they kind of get a tick of the box for the content that's being contributed in the content network?
Well, we approve the contributor before they're allowed to get on the site. But no, the content goes directly onto the site with no editorial oversight.
Right.
It happens in a self-editing afterwards, which happens as a result of comments from readers, which sometimes are editing content in terms of, hey, something small like you misspelled this, or
right.
something large like I don't agree with your argument at all, and then it leads to a very interesting conversation. So no.
So you're not worried about them ever having a bad day and having a rant on Forbes?
Well, not so much a rant, but look, that is the risk profile of the model, right?
Right.
And we've had a few instances, and we removed stuff, and we've probably had a total of 2,500 or so, I'm not sure of the exact number, contributors over the last 3 years, and we're constantly curating the contributors and getting better, and as the site gets larger, we're able to kind of measure them more in terms of, get more judicious in terms of who.
What's the qualification procedure then, just simply?
Qualification is, it comes in several ways. So contributors can go to a form on our site and apply to become a contributor, and then we follow up on them and do some due diligence, and our editors then approve or don't approve. Sometimes they come in, I have recommended people on there, and so they come in from all different directions, but it goes through a vetting process with the editorial team.
Right, right. And you mentioned the advertisers that are getting it and are actually being most successful in the kind of branded content component. Can you talk a little bit more about what quantifies as getting it?
Well, when I said getting it, I meant that creating content to be part of the conversation is not promotional content, and it
right.
is not brochureware, it is not trying to sell them something. It's about a subject related to whatever topic or category they're writing in. So for instance, NetApp writing about big data is, they have a lot to contribute there because many of their experts are deep experts in the category. To have a former engineer from GM writing about engine technology is interesting editorial and not promotional editorial. So we do disallow certain posts. We do vet those a little more closely in terms of making sure that they're contributing to the conversation, not selling to the audience. And the audience will shut them down immediately if they're selling. They just won't get anyone to read it. Right. And that's the ultimate measure. And they get that feedback. They get a stats dash as well that tells them how they're doing.
Which strikes the term that Vittorio used many times during his presentation on relevance. You talked a lot about the relevance of the content and the measurability and a number of other kind of models to measure. What you didn't mention, and I'd love for you to elaborate on, if you could maybe just provide a couple of examples of publishers that, again, kind of found that sweet spot of relevance and maybe how they created content that specifically took off in a mobile platform.
Yeah, we have, I can name names, but obviously I can give two examples. We have one publisher who is deeply married to a single target. So he measures the relevance of everything he does or she does to the reaction within that specific targets. And with several layers of different analytics on different products, he is following two key metrics of performance. That is returning visit to their particular kind of contents, and which is a fundamental one for them, and level of sharing. So they have optimized their production to only do things that achieve over a certain level in these two categories. We have another one who, on the other hand, is still selling by the bulk, so is working extremely aggressively on multiplying mobile impressions. What they have done is they've worked very, very profoundly in making, for example, the replica products able to drive people to their website and back. So they have developed stories that have constant reminders of deeper, let's say, deeper analysis, and then bring back to the original article. And what they're measuring is this, the tail of linkage and return to a high level.
But without mentioning the brands, what types of content? Are there sectors or types of content specifically that you're finding is, has more traction or is more relevant for mobile publishers or publishing?
To be honest, we find that everything that is really connected with the activity of either, let's say, media consumption or fashion consumption,
right,
have a larger rebound from tablet experience.
When you say media, meaning entertainment, so entertainment and lifestyle?
No, mostly media. So people
right,
that are talking about things they've just either seen on TV or
right,
watched on the movies, etc. So it's basically a self-media, it's a meta-media exercise. That works very well.
The gentleman from, Bill Carter from ALM yesterday was in a session and talked about their own journey in mobile. And there were lots of really positive figures for someone who admitted at the open of his presentation that when he accepted the speaking role, he wasn't sure what they were doing in mobile. And you know, it was a fantastic story because actually not only did they have some very successful products that sold themselves through sponsorship that they put attached to the launch of the products, but it had a fantastic not only kind of engagement and click-through, but in the end was actually showing a doubling in subscriptions on average after the launch of the mobile products. How common is that? Is that an unusual effect of launching mobile products against a media portfolio to see kind of external or other positive effects on kind of subscription or sales?
What we see is two things. A radical divergence of the target makeup. So we find that when people are serious about their mobile exercises, they find readers that they didn't have before, in terms both of demographic, social demographic profiling and attitude. Which
is what he mentioned. And yeah, it's a easy 2 and 2 to put together, but it's nice when it actually adds up. Because he was attracting a different audience that hadn't read ALM products before, that were often younger, that were happier to come in at a different price point.
And just one more data, they tend to buy a lot.
Right.
So contamination with e-commerce exercise or direct buying exercise, it's a good way for a company, for example, to strike a relationship with the audience, because the act of buying, if it's well done, it's usually a wonderful brand experience.
So, Michael, just coming back to you again, you've been at this for a while. A small company called LinkedIn suddenly decided to be in the content business. How much of a concern is that for you, given the scale of their registered audience with incredible data behind it? It's fascinating to me that it took them this long. But it is a similar business model, at least in terms of their content creation. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, we certainly talk with them a whole lot because we do have similar models. And the one editorial channel that they really perform fantastically in for us, as well as for themselves as they define themselves, is in career advice.
Right.
So our career content gets played across LinkedIn, driving tons of traffic back to us. So we see them as a good partner and part of the ecosystem, again, of this social ecosystem that's out there driving readership. We have not been concerned about them eating our lunch or something along those lines. It's not inconceivable. I've always thought in the business press, I was many years at Fortune and running the business information group at Time Inc., and now at Forbes and a number of startups in between. And I always thought the new articulation of what the business books originally were conceived as, 80, 90 years ago, is what LinkedIn is doing, which is connecting business people or interested people in specific subjects around business. It used to be you'd read it in the magazine, you'd see a name, you'd see Vittorio mentioned in an article, and you'd say, I got to connect with that guy because we can do things together. So more as a partner to this date.
Okay, we've probably got time for one or two more questions. If there's not one more, I'll go ahead and take the luxury of the last question. We've got a hand up over there on the right, if we can get a mic to him. While we're getting the mic to him, I'll actually just add one more question for you, Michael. Are you licensing your platform?
We are licensing our platform. We are licensing our platform. We're in the final strokes of a license. with a U.S. publisher, and we've had conversations going around the world with a number of publishers who we have basically taken our platform and, for lack of a better term, almost shrink-wrapped it down to a software product that they can plug into their platform and begin to build a contributor network using the same tool set and everything else. So it's a new business for us, of which we have a lot of interest.
Okay, go ahead.
This is Chris Kevorkian, the Kevorkian Group. The question is for Mike. You've been with a variety of brands. The one you're with currently has had tremendous success in accomplishing what much of the conference has talked about, and that is digital transformation and really leading the organization through a digital-first strategy. How has that been accomplished? You know, what drove that successful aspiration?
That sounds like a whole nother session, but
Take a stab.
That was the first half hour of my presentation. Quickly, you know what it took was, because I've worked at very large organizations and startups, and intellectually everyone knows you've got to change right now. The world's changing. The company I last worked at, Techonomy, a company I founded, was based on the premise of revolutions in progress. And so intellectually everyone knows you've got to change. Emotionally, it's very hard to do so. Fortunately, at Forbes, Tim Forbes, a family-run business, he made it an edict. He recognized the importance to change, and the world was changing, and he bought TrueSlant, which became the catalyst for changing everything inside Forbes. So that's the Forbes story of how it actually happened in a very short answer.
Okay, that's us out of time, so please round of applause for our speakers in this session.